Hey guys, Yankee here, and today I'm going to be giving my thoughts on Digimon Ghost Game, episodes 28 and 29. So, episode 28 opens up with Hiro's friend Nomura, and he is apparently taking a shortcut through a graveyard to get back to the dorm, where he bumps into Asuramon, or Ashuramon? They say it as Ashuramon in the show, but everywhere that I see it romanized, it's Asuramon. So I'm just going to call him Asuramon. And Asuramon steals Nomura's face. And when we finally see Hiro and Kyoshiro going to Nomura's dorm room to see sort of what's up with him, they haven't seen him in a couple days. They go in and he has like a little mask. And they take the mask off and he's got no eyes. So his face has been stolen, but only like the top half. Like his mouth and nose is still fine, I think. I think the nose was still there. But anyway, Hiro sees this. Oh my gosh, my friend's face is gone. And immediately, his first thing is, well, maybe a Digimon could have done this. Both of these episodes, we see Hiro, we see something weird going on, and immediately it's like, well, maybe a Digimon is doing this. No more, oh, what could it be? Let's investigate. Let's try and figure it out. No, his immediate, like, the first thing that jumps to mind is, well, it's probably a Digimon doing this. So, Hiro has learned that it's always a Digimon, which, I'm saying that now, this will never happen. But boy, would that be an interesting twist if in a future episode they had like, oh, what is this mysterious thing going on? And it turns out to just be not a Digimon, it's just like a weird coincidence thing or something. Like, it doesn't have to be an actual ghost or anything like that, but like, just a problem that for once doesn't turn out to be a Digimon would be an interesting twist. But again, not really the show for that, I don't think. I don't think we'll ever do that. So, from there, Hiro thinks it's a Digimon. We jump to Angoramon, who is hanging out with his friends, who he likes to drink tea with. We don't really get a discussion with him, but we even like see Repamon from 10 episodes ago, maybe, who was brought into their little friend circle to cut lemons. So silly, but he's there, so that's cool. Like, one thing I like about this show is how I'm not always a big fan of how the episodes are resolved and how some Digimon get off scot-free when they probably shouldn't have. But I do like the continuity where, like, all these Digimon that, like, a lot of these Digimon that we've seen are still around, and even if we're not interacting with them, like Repamon in this episode, like, he became a part of Angoramon's little Digimon friend circle, and so we see him there when we go there. That's cool. And basically, the Digimon there are talking about how people are getting their faces stolen. And then we see Asuramon finding some guy on the basketball court, stealing his face, and we sort of figure out what he's doing with the faces. Like, he steals the face, he puts it on, and the guy had just done a slam dunk. His first slam dunk. He felt so accomplished. Asuramon takes his face, puts it on, grabs the basketball, does a slam dunk. He is stealing humans' faces to then feel their emotions. And we get a brief like explanation of Asuramon later on where he has 3 faces and each one feels a singular emotion. So he only has 3 emotions in total. And so he's stealing people's faces to feel the other emotions and things that they did. And then we get to sort of... Oh, not even. Like, we're like halfway. They go to the graveyard to try and stop him. Kyoshiro, no Jellymon. Jellymon's off doing her own thing. So it's Kyoshiro, Ruri, and Angoramon. And Kyoshiro immediately gets his face stolen while Ruri and Angoramon just stand there. Like, they didn't even try and help. They just sat there as his face was stolen. And then Ruri's face is stolen. And so now we've got Hiro, Gamamon, Angoramon, and Jellymon are the only ones left. Jellymon is going to stay and take care of Kyoshiro, so she's worthless. So we've got Angoramon, Hiro, and Gamamon, who are trying to stop Asuramon and get people's faces back. And Asuramon basically goes on like a rampage where he's just running around stealing people's faces. like as many as he can, and eventually he sees on a television like a soccer stadium where people are like, fans are cheering and going crazy, and he's like, I need to steal those faces, I need to feel those emotions. So he's making his way to the thing, and there's a whole little like subplot where a Digimon that hangs around with Angoramon, Mushmon, the Mushroom Digimon, is basically being bossed around by Asurumon. Like, he's sort of afraid of Asurumon, so he's kind of helping him. And Mushmon's the reason why Hiro and Angoramon know that he's going to the soccer stadium to steal people's faces. So they meet him there. They use their digivices to bring them into like the little digital space, and then they start to fight. And it's like we get a little back and forth between Asurumon and Kausgamamon, with Angoramon sort of helping to distract them so Kausgamamon can get an attack in. Eventually we evolve into Canon Weissmon, of course we do. And for some reason the animation just really picks up here. Like, the fight between Asurumon and Canon Weissmon looks really good, and there was like a lot of interesting shots in it, and it was fun. It was a really good fight with a lot of like care put into it. For an like this, I was gonna say this happened before, but like not really. Like, usually when the animation gets really good, it's for like an important episode, like the episode where Gamamon fights. Is it Saberdramon? Is that right? The black Birdramon, and then Dark Lizamon. Like, that fight, like, there's a lot of good animation in that episode, but it's like an important one. Whereas this feels like just a regular episode, but we got like really good animation here. And so Asurumon and Canon Weissmon fight. Canon Weissmon is doing really well, and then all of a sudden he just de-digivolves. There wasn't an explanation for why. We don't know if it was a time limit thing. We don't know if it was an exhaustion thing, because Canon Weissmon in the moment didn't seem tired, but once he de-digivolved back into Kausgamamon, he was exhausted. So we don't really know why that happened. I'm assuming that's going to come back, where either like it becomes a problem where they're not able to stay in their ultimate forms for long enough, and we're going to have to either learn how to expand the time on that or something. Like, I assume this is coming back in some way. It feels too important to just be a one-off thing. So Canon Weissmon de-digivolves and collapses. Asurumon is approaching him to attack, and Hiro just sort of steps in the way and gets his face stolen. And this, he gets his face stolen, and immediately Asurumon puts it on and starts feeling Hiro's emotions sort of in that moment of like, he's my brother, I gotta protect him, things like that. And Angoramon uses this moment where Asurumon has taken on Hiro's face to just ask Asurumon to give back everybody's faces, because in the beginning of this show it was established that Hiro's a bit of a pushover, and if you just ask him to do something, he just gives in and does it. And it was even reiterated at the beginning of this episode where Nomura, Kyoshiro brings up that Nomura was supposed to do cleaning duty for the dorm, and Hiro just says like, no, we switched, I'm doing it for him. And Kyoshiro says like, okay, you don't say no to anybody, you're just kind of a pushover. And Angoramon uses that to their advantage here, and while Asurumon is wearing Hiro's face, asks him to give back all the faces. So he does. There was another Digimon in this episode. I don't remember what his name is. It's like Kongomon. That doesn't sound right. But it's like the gold beetle Digimon. I believe he's an Armor Evolution. He was the one that was storing all the faces for Asurumon. He didn't really play much of a role. Like, Mushmon had a bit of a bigger role in this than the bug did. But, like, we see a moment in, like, the middle where he opens up, like, a little portal to where all the faces are. So yeah, that's episode 28. It was pretty good. The animation with the fight with Asurumon and Canon Weissmon was great. The resolution made sense. Again, Asurumon just gets brought into and Goremon's friend group. Like, it's Repamon all over again, where it's like, hey, if you want to see what human emotions are like, come join our Digimon friend group, and you can watch. I don't know. Asurumon didn't do as much damage as Repamon did. Like, Repamon actually, like, hurt people. Like, I guess Asurumon was stealing their faces, which isn't good, but it wasn't, like, physical harm. So, I don't know. Again, sometimes they go really easy on the enemies in this show. So, episode 29. This is a Kyoshiro episode, which automatically means it's one of my favorites. Kyoshiro, Jellymon episodes are really good. I think Kyoshiro and Jellymon are like the strongest characters in this show. So having an episode where they are almost entirely cut off from Hiro and Ruri until like the very end was really good. Kyoshiro and Jellymon are just at the mall. And just so happens that at the top of this mall, there is a Digimon releasing some sort of fog. And basically, the mall gets shut down. Like, don't leave, there's a weird fog out there. Inside the mall, there are, what are they called? Ko-Dokugumon, which are little Dokugumons running around attacking people, poisoning people. And also we have a lost girl that Kyoshiro finds. So we've got a lot of moving pieces already. A mysterious fog, a bunch of spider Digimon attacking people, and then just this lost girl who thinks Kyoshiro is like some sort of superhero. Like, she has an action figure that looks kind of like him. And so she's a kid. She thinks that Kyoshiro is this character. And so basically the episode is, we gotta try and get this girl to like the security area of the mall so she can find her mom. We're getting attacked by spiders. The spiders are poisoning people, despite the fact that the spiders themselves can't produce poison. So where's the poison coming from? And it's just like chaos, like inside and outside. So people are getting attacked and collapsing. Outside, there's just this fog that if you go into it, you collapse. Hiro and Ruri are trying to get into the mall to see what's going on. And again, earlier in the episode, like, Hiro's immediate response or immediate thought when seeing this is like, it's a Digimon. It's got to be a Digimon. So they go in through the underground tunnels to get there. Meanwhile, Kyoshiro is trapped inside. He gets bitten and poisoned and isn't doing very well. And we get like a long chunk of the episode where he's like in his more confident state of mind. Like, Kyoshiro's weird. He's got like two personalities, right? He's got his scaredy cat personality, and then sometimes he just sort of clicks into the more confident side. And for a good chunk of this episode, we see him as that confident side, which is nice because it kept things moving. But yeah, Hiro, Ruri are going through the underground, and it's just briefly mentioned that like Hiro loves abandoned train tunnels. We're just going to throw that out there. I don't know if that'll ever come back. That's something that should be relevant later down the line, but I don't know. That also sounds like just like a random, okay, we just need to get them underground. How do we get them underground? Hiro knows about underground train tunnels. Sure. So Hiro and Ruri bump into Harrismon, who I think this episode aired right around the time when was it Digimon Re-Arise, the mobile game, was shutting down. So I assume that Harrismon was just here as like a nod to that. He's just there in the tunnels. He lives in the tunnels, I guess, and he's upset about the Ko-Dokugumon that are just there. So we go to the roof. Kyoshiro figures out that the spiders are all fleeing to the roof. And so we head up to the roof, and we see that the Digimon there is Terapiamon, who is like a dragon plant Digimon. He's cool. He's like a dinosaur with like palm tree leaves and stuff around his neck. He's got a really neat design. And we see in that moment that he's basically infested with these the name Ko-Dokugumon. It's so much. He's got them all over himself, and he's like trying to poison them. And at that moment, I'm like, oh, okay, he's just a Digimon hanging out who's covered in bugs, and he's trying to kill them, and his poison is spreading. At the end of the episode, there's another explanation, which is silly. But Kyoshiro, now having snapped out of his more confident side, is back to his sort of cowardly self, and he's basically dying from poison. He collapses, and he gets like a phone call from Hiro, basically saying, "Hey, we're on our way. We're coming to help." And we get like a couple flashbacks. One when Gammamon evolved into Canon Weissmon, and then another one when Ruri and Kyoshiro were in the dream fighting the Skull Greymon, where Ruri saves him, grabs him, and is having Angoromon like make a bunch of duplicates of himself. And he has like this little speech where it's like, they're always brave, they're always fighting, like I'm their senpai, I have to be brave and fight too. And Jellymon gets a new evolution called Thetismon, which looks really cool. I really like the design. The personality change between Tesla Jellymon and Thetismon is like completely different. Like the bratty attitude of Jellymon is completely gone in this form, which isn't a surprise because like that's always how evolution has worked in these shows, at least from what I remember, is like as they evolve further they mature more, and then as they go back to their child forms or rookie forms they're more childish, right? Like the evolutions themselves are growing up for Digimon. It's just an artificial way to do it because they have human partners. So like Thetismon is entirely mature here and not at all a brat like Jellymon is. So Thetismon is like a healer, I guess. Like she is able to create an antidote from this poison with her abilities. So she has some sort of I don't know. Again, we've only seen it once. I don't know if it's strictly poison stuff or if she's just a general healer. But if she can just sort of heal anything, like that sort of takes away from tension in fights later on if she can heal people. So who knows? She's got a good design. The fight, if you can even call it a fight in this episode, was not as good as the Asurumon fight. The Asurumon fight was great. It feels like the Jellymon episodes especially get the shaft when it comes to animation. Like even the Angoromon versus Repamon fight, I can think of like a really good moment of animation. Like I still remember it; it sticks out in my head when he's got the two bamboo shoots. But Tessa Jellymon doesn't get a lot of good animation in her episodes, which is unfortunate. So Thetismon stops the spread of the poison, heals Kyoshiro, and then we talk to Terapiamon, and we learn that he got lost from his friends, and he was sending out his pollen as like a signal to find them. So everything with him and the Kodokugumon was like completely irrelevant. Like I don't know how they came to intersect. Like I get that the Kodokugumon were getting the poison from him because they had like covered his body. That makes sense. I get that they were on his body and so he was trying to kill them. That makes sense. But just adding the extra layer of, oh, no, the pollen I was spreading was just to try and get my friends, and then the Dokugumon apparently showed up, and then I tried to kill them, and they were trying to just steal my poison. It's a bit much. Like, him just attacking the Dokugumon because they were infesting his body is enough. We didn't need that extra step of... it was too much. So anyway, the other Tropiamon find him, and he takes off, and Kyoshiro says, hey, don't spread your pollen around people, it hurts them. And he says, okay, I won't, goodbye. And that's it. Yeah, I think that extra layer of why he was spreading his pollen is just a bit much. It should have just been, I am infested with these spiders, I am trying to kill these spiders, but they keep coming, and it's terrible. Like, that's all it needed to be. He already had, like, that's sympathetic enough. He's got these bugs all over him that are attacking him, and then he is fighting back against them, and it just happened to get people caught up in it. Like, he wasn't a villain. Again, it was just like people got caught up in Digimon fighting. We didn't need the extra layer of him needing to try and find his friends. There's a really fun moment at the end, though, where Thetismon heals everyone, and people get a photo of her, and now there is a rumor of her being a goddess online, and that's fun. This episode was good. Everything with the little girl was nice. Kyoshiro stepping up and actually, even when he was sort of in his more cowardly state of mind, stepping up and trying to be heroic was good. It was a good episode, despite again, the resolutions in these episodes can be pretty weak. I think the Asurumon episode with Angormon taking advantage of Asurumon donning Hiro's face was good, and it was a good way to sort of resolve that. I don't care for the fact that Asurumon just becomes one of his friends. The Tropiumon thing was too much. Like, we just needed him and the Ko-Dokugumon fighting. That's it. But yeah, 2 good episodes. They're not... Again, they both kind of dropped the ball a bit at the end. But for the most part, everything else is great. So yeah, that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.